guys, so I just filmed my end of month reading wrap up for September, and whilst I just talked about the books I have just finished, I thought I really just felt like talking about the books I'm also currently reading, so I thought whilst I'm sitting here I would also film a currently reading video. These are just videos in which I talk about the books I'm currently reading, my thoughts at whatever point I am in the story, so we can kind of compare as they go along and I can offload some of my feelings. I was wondering, this was something I was thinking about, how you would feel if, you know, maybe there was more than one currently reading video in a month. This isn't a promise. But sometimes I have thought as the month has kind of come into the second half that I've been reading different books, and perhaps it might be nice to do another currently reading video as opposed to just making them a once a month thing. Let me know if you'd be interested in a more than once a month currently reading, if it's so happened that month, but if not, that's fair enough as well. Let's get into the books I'm currently reading though, shall we? So the first one I'm going to talk to you about is the one I'm probably the least of the way into, but it's the one I just started and I'm sort of currently actively reading as of last night, and that is Hearthstone by L. Catherine White. This book is just mad. It feels like it was written for me, the plot. It is based on Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, but it's set in a world where there's like magical creatures like hobgoblins, and most of the main characters are dragon riders. So the equivalent to Mr. Darcy is a dragon rider, and at the beginning of the story, before the story actually starts, one of the main character, Eliza's sisters, has been killed by a griffin, and their family have sent away for a group of dragon riders to come and get rid of the griffins from their area, slay the griffins to protect the people that live there. And this is where these sort of Darcy, Mr. Bingley equivalents come into the story. I love dragons and I love fantasy about dragons. I love period fantasy novels. I love period fantasy dragon novels, sort of set in the Victorian or Regency eras. So I am all for this. I am enjoying it so far, and one of the things I am glad to see seems to be happening, because I was a little bit worried going into this that it would be a very straightforward retelling, but they're just dragon riders, which I don't want. I want something more creative, I want something more new, I want a fantasy world that isn't just, you know, the exact same as the Regency era with like some dragons dumped into it. And it does seem as though the author has plotted out more than just a Pride and Prejudice retelling. I think it's based on the book, but so far there's been lots of little differences. I like the characters. They feel like they fit into a fantasy world, and I'm really hoping there'll be some really twists and turns in there for people that know the story of Pride and Prejudice and that I won't be expecting. That's what I'm hoping for, and I have a good feeling about that. So far I'm only 50 pages in, and it's about 300 pages, but I am enjoying it so far. It's quite a quick read and just a wonderful concept. So like I said, enjoying it so far, hoping for a really well developed fantasy world that I'm getting the inklings of so far, and for a few twists and turns in there. I don't know, is this going to be part of a series? I wouldn't mind. The next book I am listening to on audiobook, and it is My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. This is my second Daphne du Maurier. I previously listened to on audiobook Rebecca, which is probably her most well-known work, I think. People are always talking about Rebecca and seem to really love it. I enjoyed Rebecca. It's not my favourite book of all time, but I did enjoy it. I think I'm enjoying My Cousin Rachel a little bit more. I'm about 40% of the way through this one on audiobook. And it centres around our protagonist Philip, who was raised by his older cousin after his parents both passed away when he was very little, and he's now 24, and his cousin goes away on his like sort of annual trip to Italy and ends up writing Philip a letter to tell him that he has got married. You know, this lifelong middle-aged bachelor has decided to finally get married. Philip isn't sure how he feels about this. This really interrupts his idea of their lives as these bachelors, and is a little bit dubious about the idea of a woman coming into the house. But then all goes haywire when his cousin dies, and he isn't there for the death because it happens in Italy, and his new wife Rachel comes to live with them, and initially Philip's very distrustful of her, but when he actually meets her she doesn't appear to be what he was expecting, and he's thrown off by this. And I really like this one. I feel like it's more sinister than Rebecca was for me, and I really just like the interactions between Philip and Rachel and the rest of the community, whilst knowing that there's probably something darker going on here. Everyone believes that the cousin Ambrose died of natural causes, and there's not any real reason to suspect otherwise. There is a family history of tumours that press onto the brain that would have caused what happened to him. But at the same time, if that was all there was to it, Daphne du Maurier probably wouldn't have written it. There's more going on. Something's going to happen, and waiting for that to happen whilst just reading this quite fun period set novel is very good. I'm very much enjoying it. I really look forward to finding out what happens at the end, and I do want to see the film. So once I have read the book, I can watch the film. But yeah, I'd be interested. Does anybody else prefer My Cousin Rachel to Rebecca? In saying that, I might completely change my mind by the time I'm at the end, but so far I'm really enjoying this one. I just looked and I'm actually 50% of the way through, so I'll be finished sooner than I thought. Now the next book is a book I was reading in my last currently reading video, but I am almost finished it now, and I just thought I would talk about it again because I have feelings. And that is Moonrise by Sarah Crossan. This is a young adult book written entirely in verse, so like one long narrative poem, and it follows our main character Joe, who is a 17-year-old boy, and his brother is on death row. The execution date for his brother has come up, so he has gone to stay near the prison and see what happens if there's an appeal, like get to see his brother after not seeing him for years, all of that kind of thing. And this is very much about how the death penalty affects the family of the accused. Joe has not had the best or most fortunate life, definitely a lot of things he's had to deal with only at the age of 17, and it's very hard for him to see this happening to his brother, especially when his brother says that he didn't commit this crime. The reason it's taken me so long to finish this book, when the narrative actually flows really well and could keep you really engaged in it until you've got to the end, is because it is so hard to read. Like, I find this even more emotional and hard-hitting than I found Sarah Crossan's other book that I read, One. I've just found this is really tugging at my heartstrings. I'm finding it a very emotional, hard-hitting read. Like I said, those are the words. And it's meaning that I'm reading a bit and then kind of having to put it down and read something a little bit more cheerful and then come back to it. But it's doing all of those things because it's so wonderfully written and it's so wonderfully constructed. I think it's such an interesting concept, and yeah, all round I think it's really well done, and I have honestly no idea how it's going to end. But I'm just certain that my emotions are going to be just incredibly raw by the time I do finish this book, which won't be long, but like I said, it's just really emotional, and I think you have to be in the right state of mind to read something like that. That's everything I'm currently reading though at the moment. Do let me know your thoughts on any of the books I've talked about in this video, or do you know any other fantasy 1800s-esque books with dragons in them? Do let me know. Until next time guys, happy reading and I'll see you all again soon. Bye.